a lot of work going on behind the scenes for the management. And our sailors as well are in that funny position where some of them are still recovering from the last lap of the planet, while others are already looking ahead to the next challenge. But one of our sailors who legitimately has a bit more recovery to do, or at least can be enjoying the victory, is Charlie Enright, skipper of 11th Hour Racing Team. And he joins me now. Charlie, thank you for talking to me today. The last time I saw you was, 6-7 months ago in Geneva. It was an incredible party. You were still wearing the bruises and the scars of the fantastical journey that you've been on. But that moment of you lifting the trophy, I mean, being the winner, has that sunk in yet?
Well, I guess for starters, thanks for having me, Niall. Good to chat again. As it relates to your question, no, I don't think it has, honestly. Although 6 months ago, sometimes it still feels like we're kind of getting ready for the next leg still. But in actuality, we're in the process of kind of winding things down. And as you might imagine, you don't just like flip a switch and have these things come to a close.
How long has it taken you to, when your alarm clock goes on in the morning, how long has it taken you to realize that's just an alarm clock waking you to a nice day rather than the autopilot warning you about a wind shift?
Yeah, I mean, I wish that alarm clocks were actually waking me up in the morning. I think sleep's certainly been hard to come by for a host of reasons. But yeah, it's definitely different, kind of re-entering the day-to-day, if you will. But honestly, I mean, what we just went and did is still consuming every ounce of my life. Haven't really been able to kind of turn the page and move on yet, honestly, and even really start that reflection process.
For so many people, when they think about your journey, your adventure, your victory, there'll be a lot of key moments. I mean, obviously limping through the Southern Ocean, will they, won't they actually get to the finish of that leg? Obviously the crash just before the start of the final leg, but for yourself and for your team, obviously, your experience is on the inside of that. What does stand out for you?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head a couple times there. I mean, we really were on this real life roller coaster, and the lows definitely just as important as the highs. I think the lows are what kind of pushed us as a team and allowed us to get it over the line in the end. Southern Ocean was really, really difficult, but looking back on it, just some of the most rewarding time that I've spent anywhere. And with that group of people, just amazing to get through such a challenge. And I think it was certainly a bigger challenge maybe for us than it was for others. But just fighting through so that we had a chance, 38 days on a boat on the way to Brazil, in a position where it felt stranger to finish than it did to actually keep going. Just an experience we'll never forget. But the real turning point, I think, for us happened in Brazil. Kind of, we had the come to Jesus moment, if you will, and then we saw the results of that kind of push and that renewed drive in the import race there, but also in the finish in Newport, which for me, I mean, what a beautiful day, what an awesome finish. That was the beginning of the turnaround for us. That's something that I look back on fondly. And then, from there, obviously, we were on fire. And, it was going to take something pretty crazy to extinguish that. And all of a sudden, the Hague's the Hague. And, our team, just as we were rolling, gets pushed to the brink again. And, can't say enough about how every aspect of the team was able to respond to that. So highs and lows for sure. But, we came and, achieved what we were looking to do.
Do you miss the boat? I mean, the place that you lived together, experienced so much highs and lows. Is it somewhere that you're happy to leave it behind?
Yeah, I mean, we do what we do because every day is different, and there's always a new challenge. You're always building something. You're doing it with a team, and there's definitely like a vacant space in my heart, in my brain. Some people call it the PTSD, the whatever it is. It's real. It's a big letdown. You just go from such an intense situation with such a tight-knit group of people to being the assistant to the assistant to the assistant junior basketball coach for my son Thomas, So not that that's, anything to kind of shake a stick at, but, it's just, it's different. There's nothing like the ocean race. And, to think that you'd kind of keep living at that level even after it's over, would be naive.
It's definitely a change of pace, and the intensity for your team, I think in particular, really, it peaked. It always is a build up towards the finish. But what you guys went through just before the start on that final leg, a final leg that should have been, hey, we just got to sail this. It's not in the bag, but we just got to sail this, and then, the trophy, it's all good. Everything should fall into place. And then obviously that moment on the water with Guyo, I need to sort of ask, you mentioned your boat and everything, and I'll come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But talking to the Guyo guys, have you got, there was a beautiful moment where we saw you on the dock and there was so much emotion for everybody involved in that. How's that been since the race?
Good, I think. I haven't spent a lot of time in Brittany, since the race concluded, and it's no secret that that's where most of the fleet resides. So not a ton of interaction, but even though I'm mostly a consumer and not a contributor, I do have the social medias, and I've had some back and forth with Benjamin. Actually, just this week, you really do form a bond with everybody that you do this crazy adventure with, and that's something that never breaks and never goes away.
You talk about that bond, not with the teammates as well, but with competitors as well. And I know that in all the history of the race that you've done, you've seen people from other teams help each other out where we've seen the lowest of the lows, and we've seen people really needing to kind of rely on each other. That moment where we saw your boat and Guyo Environment Team Europe collide, the image for me that really sticks in my head was Seb being on the bow of Guyo. Everybody involved on the shore, on the boats, going through an awful lot. He definitely had it kind of all there in his face. And am I right in saying he's been sailing your boat, right? He kind of took ownership of that. So there's the kind of the race, but there's also that thing of, whose boat's who, the passing on of information, the kind of baton passing, how you guys helped each other out. It's a very tight-knit community.
Yeah, for sure. Competitors, yes, obviously, but the amount of respect I think that everybody has for everybody else, knowing what they've sacrificed to get to where they are, and what they've endured just to circumnavigate the planet on wonderfully comfortable yachts like the IMOCA 60. There's just an immense amount of respect for everybody that's kind of in the race, competitor or teammate. And as it relates to that specific situation, the subplots are innumerable. Where do you want to start? It was our old boat. I'd sailed almost 30,000 miles on that boat. That was our spare mast that allowed them to get back into the race to even be in that position in the first place. Seb had a deal in place prior to the incident to purchase our existing boat. So, the pundits, the keyboard warriors, are you sure this wasn't scripted? They were sent to take these. You could not come up with all the storylines if you tried.
Yeah.
So yes, the situation was a difficult one for obvious reasons, but 100% organic and definitely a lot more complicated than anyone might even give it credit for being.
And your boat was fast, obviously. You guys managed to get the speed out of it. The boat's only as good as the sailors that are able to unlock that potential. But one thing I keep thinking back as I look at everything that we've been through around the world, the boats were relentlessly cruel to you. Physically throwing you guys around. And there are those IMOCAs that we see that are a bit more on the comfort side, not just in terms of room to stand up or a bit more cooking space, but just the way they ride the waves. Would you get into an IMOCA and think, do you know what? I don't want to be bruised so much. I don't want to be flung around so much. Is that something that you would think about stepping on a boat again? Yeah,
for sure. I think, what looks good in simulation, years before you go out and do something, isn't always what comes to fruition. And usually what's comfortable is fast. I think some of the modifications that we'd make if we were able to do this again would be for both comfort and speed. I think our boat was quite quick, quite tight reaching for sure, but certainly struggled off the wind in a big sea state. I mean, that's no secret. We have to keep in mind that when we started building, we were hoping to be the newest boat in the race, and actually ended up being, other than the black boat, the oldest boat in the race. And we designed our boat to go to China and New Zealand, which also didn't happen. So there were some interesting bits in the design process that kind of were out of our control. But, it's so cool to see kind of where the boats have gone. And the ocean race has been such a massive part of that because the way the class used to work is that everybody would learn in these 4-year cycles, when the boats would go into the South for the first and in most cases only time in a traditional 4-year Vendée cycle. And now with the ocean race at the halfway point, it presents another opportunity to go experience these conditions with your friends, which is cool, and pushing in a way that these boats have never been pushed before. So it's cool stuff, and it's just the beginning, I think, for this long-term relationship that looks quite bright.
And where are those IMOCAs going to go in terms of shape, style, speed? I mean, we were in La Basse not that long ago. There were some boats that were still on paper. There were some boats that were coming out of sheds. And already you could see the little tweaks that people have made to existing designs. In which direction do you think it's going to move?
There's still a lot in the hull form. I mean, you can see the boats that have been successful, just in this last calendar year. I think there's a lot in the kind of the scow bow, perhaps a little bit more rocker in the back. I think there's a lot of gains to be made on the aero side of things. I think it's about the high averages, really. It is. I think our boats are capable of doing top speeds very close to, if not the same as, what the boats of this next generation are doing. But what they're able to do is sustain it for longer periods of time. And maybe we overshot the landing a little bit with our foils. I think there is a balance between how much power you need and how much power you can use. So it'll be really interesting to see where it goes, for sure. And I think it'd be interesting to see this generation of boat, what I'm calling kind of post-ocean race, if you will, get pushed in a crude capacity. I mean, we're seeing some big numbers being posted. I think it was Tomariant broke the single-handed 24-hour record. Let's see what that platform looks like with 4 people pushing the boat for 24 hours, in similar conditions. So I think the sky's the limit, really.
And what about the test that's in front of them? I mean, the route you mentioned in the last edition, obviously, there were changes to the route last minute that affected your design, planning for one route, and then a different route came out. What would you like to see as a racetrack for the next edition of the Ocean Race? Any highlights, any key corners that you want to see featured?
I think the amount of time we spent in the Southern Ocean was pretty cool. It's a majestic place, and kind of watching the old teams down there, right now is, there's a bit of jealousy. I saw the pictures of Charles Caudrelier that were taken at the Kirklands the other day, and it just reminded me of some good banter we had between all the boats on WhatsApp about stopping in for a pint at the Kirklands because they're only a couple hundred miles away, and it's just the albatross, the vastness, the feeling of remoteness. It's something that I miss, certainly. But in the Alvamedica race, call it 14-15, we went in the south. We did the whole New Zealand to Cape Horn thing, and that was great. In the next race, we had the leg from Cape Town to Melbourne, and then from I think Auckland to Cape Horn. I think 2 legs of that nature is about right. The long leg, although great, did get a bit grueling, and we were fortunate that the boats didn't really have any majors, but a reset halfway could be something to look into in the future. But certainly 2 parts of the Deep South, if you will, kind of from Cape to Cape and then Cape to Cape would look pretty cool to me.
You talk about the Southern Ocean and the isolation so passionately, and I think for so many people when they do the ocean race, it's that feeling of, I'm glad I've got to the end, but there's unfinished business, and I'm really looking forward to coming back and having another crack. But you've finished that business. Your name is on the trophy. You've done it. Does the hunger still remain in your scenario?
Yeah, honestly, I think it does. I haven't had time, like I said, to actually sit back and reflect. Kind of still looking in the rear view and not quite able to look forward yet. But when you, like I said, when you're on the internet and you see these old teams down there, I'd also like to give a special shout out to an American girl by the name of Cole Brower, who's down there right now sailing single-handed in a Class 40. It makes you wish you were down there, doing it and getting amongst it. And I should send her a note soon, just letting her know that certainly when you get to Cape Horn, that's not the end. There's a lot of treacherous weather that comes off those mountains straight into the sea, so don't let your guard down until you're in the until you're sweating, basically. But yeah, I mean, I love that part of the world. As torturous as it can be at times, we got to remember how lucky we are to be down there. We're some of the only people in the world.
Oh, Charlie, thank you very much. I will continue I'll let you continue your sort of dizzying tour of dinners and, celebrations and all the things that you have rightly deserved with your performance and your team's performance as well. So thank you very much for talking to me, and congratulations once again.
Thanks, Niall. I appreciate it. There's some sailing on the horizon too, don't you worry.